Hey Cynthia, I just wanted to give you a quick video reply on the question you asked. You talked about working as a visual arts teacher in a general ed setting and for the first time having a student with severe autism in your classroom and trying to figure out a way to modify what you're already doing with your art curriculum for this student. You mentioned that he was pretty sensory, and as your class is doing textured art projects that you're making sure to include him. So there were a couple of tips that I wanted to give you real quick on how you can make everything work for this student. The first thing, I know you already said that you worked in a visual schedule, and I love that. Visual schedules are so important for our students with autism. But you may want to decide that you want to shorten the amount of time that a student spends on a specific task or topic. A 45-minute or 90-minute block of time is a really long period to work on a single activity. So if you can take that period of time and shorten it into some station rotation type model activities, you'll see that you get a little bit further. So even as a student is working with some sensory activities, maybe you keep that to 10, 12, 15 minutes and then transition to another task or activity, offering a little bit of a break in between as the student transitions. So the first thing I would say is maybe include some station rotation type model so that you can shorten the amount of time the student is on a single task. The second thing that I would offer out to you is, and I go through a lot of classrooms and I see this happen a lot of times, where a student has severe autism or severe disability or needs a lot of assistance, and while the rest of the class is doing an art project, this student kind of sits off to the side and, God forbid, works on a coloring sheet, or maybe just watches all of the rest of the students work and doesn't do anything at all. So as a way to make sure that the student is involved in what everybody else is doing, I suggest maybe you try like a little bit of a matrix in terms of deciding kind of in an never-ending format what the student can work on. If you make something like this with just some who doing what, where, and what the medium is or what the student is using, they can kind of have this never-ending matrix of activities that they can draw or participate in so that they're doing something artistic that's not coloring or watching. So if you looked at this, you might decide that the dog is going to be spinning at the park, and we're going to use colored pencils to make that all happen. So just like I said, this gives you a way to say, we're going to pick a few things off the matrix and create something that allows us to do something artistic, but doesn't always require you to be thinking of new ways to keep the student involved and engaged. And even when they're done with something like this and they create 2 or 3, maybe it becomes time to decide which one I like better and which one is my favorite with just a simple yes or no. The last thing that I wanted to give you as a strategy that you might try is to think of just another format. So I know you mentioned that your students were doing some texture art, and that may be a sensory activity for this student, or it could be sensory overload for them. So maybe as you're working through the rest of your school year and thinking about what curriculum and what activities you're going to be incorporating, you can think about doing the same activity that everyone else is doing with just a different medium. So if everyone else is using texture, maybe this student is going to do the texture and experience it for a shorter amount of time so that it doesn't become overstimulatory, and then transition to doing the same activity in another medium. So for example, say everyone is using clay to make pots, and I have no idea what your curriculum is, so I'm just making this up, but say everyone is using clay to make pots. You might decide that after having that sensory experience and participating in the same activity, we're going to transition to something a little less tactile and a little less sensory, and maybe draw pictures of pots or pots in different scenes so that we're still doing something related to what everyone else is doing in just a different medium with just a different art form. And then again, when you get to the conclusion of that, make sure that you're asking the student which one they preferred, which one they liked better, which one looked better, and even if it's in a yes or no model or of a binary choice model, so that there is some art appreciation going on with that as well, and not always just the production of art, but to evaluate the art pieces that they're producing. So that was just 3 quick ideas of what you could do to kind of enrich the art class for this student with severe autism who you're having maybe some challenging times figuring out how to make that work with them. I hope that helps you out. Good luck and keep me updated.